People are lazy. They like to be in their comfort zone. If we talk about the behavior change, it means that we are pushing them outside of the comfort zone. So they have to have a right incentive to go out and do something that is not easy for them, because every new thing requires the effort. It requires some courage to do that. So they have to be incentivized to do so. Otherwise, we're going to stay lazy and we're going to stay in our comfort zone. This is exactly what infrastructure does. It pushes people out of their comfort zone. It gives it enough incentive to really start showing up different skills, different habits, different behaviors. And after a lot of time of repetition, that becomes their new default and that becomes their new comfort zone. But they have to get there first.
Welcome to Build by People Leaders podcast. I'm your host, Daria Rudnik, and this show is for HR and L&D leaders, those building real impact from within and shaping AI-ready organizations. Each episode, I sit down with people leaders to talk about how they build strong cultures and shape organizations around them. It's about HR being seen as a true business partner by leaders and by HR themselves. Let's get into that. And I'm very excited about this conversation today. And I have a very special guest, Maria Kolesnikoff. She's a former head of talent management in banking and now ICF PCC coach, helping managers lead better and professionals grow faster. Welcome, Maria.
Well, thank you for having me, Daria. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
It's a pleasure to have you here. My first question to you is, well, your experience, tell us, what's the difference between learning and development programs and initiatives focused on content versus development programs focused on behavior change?
Thank you. That's a great question. This is what I have been thinking for a long time on my own and talking to other leaders, HR leaders as well. And the main difference is the program focus on the content. It's a one touch, one point, one moment. You get people into the training room, they listen to what has been said, they come back, and that's it. They come back to their workplace, and that's it. And nothing changes. And the reason is because this is not a behavior change development program. Because behavior change development program is something that is embedded in organizational system, in the structure, in all the processes, in performance management, in compensation and benefit, in recruitment, in learning and development. So the system, the infrastructure is there to support the behavior change, because when you think about the development cycle, it's about learning, practicing, and assessing. So the content-based trainings, they only cover learning. There is no practice and there is no feedback. And what infrastructure does is that exactly these two other things, practice and feedback. This is why it is so important to think about any development program on a systemic level.
I love the systemic approach, absolutely. You're so right saying that we do have the infrastructure. Like there is a compensation, there is like promotions, people's conversations, there are lots of things that could support this behavior change. And learning is not some kind of standalone project that people come back and nothing changes, like you said.
Yeah, that here's the thing though, because people are lazy. Okay? Let's admit that. People are lazy, they like to be in their comfort zone. If we talk about the behavior change, it means that we are pushing them outside of the comfort zone. So they have to have a right incentive to go out and do something that is not easy for them, because every new thing requires the effort. It requires some courage to do that. So they have to be incentivized to do so. Otherwise, we're going to stay lazy and we're going to stay in our comfort zone. This is exactly what infrastructure does. It pushes people out of their comfort zone. It gives it enough incentive to really start showing up different skills, different habits, different behaviors. And after a lot of time of repetition, that becomes their new default and that becomes their new comfort zone. But they have to get there first.
Well, how did you come up to this idea? What's your professional journey?
I have about 20 years of human resources experience under my belt in corporate world, back in Russia, where I'm from originally. And I have really worked in every HR function. I have been a recruiter. I have been doing compensations and benefits. I have been doing training and development. I have been doing organizational design and organizational change and organizational development. I have been doing nationwide HR projects like integration after merger and acquisition for a couple of big companies. So I've seen it all, quite honestly. And that allowed me to really see a HR function as a system, not as just a separate set of functions. So my last corporate job was head of talent management in corporate investment business unit of biggest Russian bank, and this is where I was actually able to kind of walk my talk, so to say. Really have that, put that into practice and really see that it is working. That kind of formed my opinion and experience on that. This is how the things should be done because I've seen that, I've done that, and I've seen the success out of that. But going back to my journey, 9 years ago, I moved to United States, and this is where I started my coaching practice. And I have been coaching ever since. And I've worked with leaders, I've worked with managers, I've worked with individual contributors, and I help them to discover their leadership potential and grow their careers. And clearly, my HR background is really, really helpful, as well as my own career journey, because I have grown from individual contributor up to top manager and then went to middle management. So my career was also very impressive and hectic at the same time.
Well, thanks for sharing the learning and development initiatives or a system practice. And yes, when you have that experience in different HR functions, that really helps see that perspective. I'm curious for those who L&D professionals who don't have that experience, what would you recommend? How do you even start thinking systemically about your processes?
Well, systemic thinking or seeing a bigger picture is the key here. I think what's important to understand and ask yourself as well is whatever I'm doing, how is that embedded into the organization? How does that influence not just me, not just my target audience, but the organization as a whole? And where is the bottlenecks and where you can find the support? And you need to look horizontally and vertically, right? What are the neighboring functions that you can include into the process so they would support and advocate for you? How can you engage leaders and leaders of leaders into the process so they support that? Only when you have this 3D model, it really is about that, understanding how whatever you're doing is impacting everybody. Like the rule of the system, you change one element, the whole system changes. That's how you need to think about it. Whatever you're doing, like, what is your goal? What are you trying to achieve? How that will create a change on the organizational level? And then how will that impact everybody and how you need to engage them into the process so it would work.
And I love how you say about the kind of looking from different perspective, looking at leadership, looking up, looking down. And I know you have a story to share, the real case that a program you've implemented.
It's a learning story, quite honestly. I'm going to start from a long time ago. This is how it started. When I was pretty young in my career, I had an opportunity to teach students in my alma mater. And one of the courses that I have created was based on the book War for Talent. And this is the book that has been written by McKinsey consultants at the end of the 1990s. And ever since I read this book, I have become a huge proponent of talent management and how it works and what does it mean. And they do look into everything as well, at the recruitment, at the assessment, at the performance management, at the bonuses and compensations, hiring, firing, all of that. So this is kind of how this idea was built in my head as well. So when I had a chance to put that into practice, clearly I used that. So I have been running the talent development program for the banking organization where I worked. And I started with really putting everything I had in my head onto the paper and then really implemented that. So I have been promoting that. People were using this program, and there was something there. There was some result there. But I myself is a system thinker and strategic thinker, and I know that every process, first you experiment and pilot things, and then you go back and you reassess, and then you improve. So that's exactly what I did. After the 1 year of running this program, I sat down, looked at the bigger picture and thought, okay, yeah, it's kind of running. I'm not sure people are really buying it. I'm not sure people are really engaged into that. So I need to take a different approach. It was really about involving everybody, every HR function into the process, involving all the stakeholders into the process. I used the method, it's called design thinking, hired consultants, and we ran that project where we interviewed everybody. I mean, not everybody, but the representatives from each target audience, from different business functions, from HR functions, leaders, participants from different talent groups that we had. We collected tons of information, but people were really willing to share what they have experienced, what they would imagine it should look like for them. And then we put the new program together. And this time it was really, really embedded into all the HR functions. So we made sure that in order for somebody to, for example, to get promoted, they need to be included in some category, that they need to follow certain criteria. They need to have certain hours of studies. They need to have a certain assessment, knowledge assessment level. They needed to have a good talent review. They needed to have a successor. They needed to share their expertise. When all of that is present, then that influences the bonus, that influences the chances of them being promoted. They kind of move in higher in the pool to be promoted, to be looked at first. And because we engaged people into that process, the acceptance and the engagement into the program was much, much higher. So that kind of was my learning curve here, to understand that you want that to work, you need to engage everybody at the very early stage, and then you need to ensure that everybody's on board. And again, like I said, horizontally and vertically. That was a really successful program.
That is a great example. And I hear like there was a succession planning part, there was a compensation part, there was a performance management part. So it's not just about learning, it's about lots of different HR initiatives. And it does require kind of conversations with your fellow HR colleagues, but also stakeholders and participants. And I mean, they really love talking about their experience and they love to contribute. Like when you go to some people and say, hey, help me make this program better, or help me create a great program for you, they would love to share their ideas. I mean, maybe you're not going to use all of them, but at least you get their involvement, you get their perspective. You can create better programs when you know what people really need and what people really want. It's an amazing example.
Yeah. And again, the best way to get the buy in from stakeholders is to use their own ideas, right? Because who would say no to their own ideas? That's kind of counterintuitive, right? So when you engage them at the early stage and you collect all this, and they know that they have been part of that process, of course they're going to support that. Of course they're going to advocate for that. And it makes our life and our job, our talent management or training and development or L&D professional, that makes our job so much easier, quite honestly. What's important here for L&D professionals is to really come into the process with open mind, not with the attitude, I know how to teach you and I'm going to do that. No, what's important is to be open-minded and be curious and really keep asking questions. This is where you can get high engagement, high involvement, and better results and more success, clearly.
While talking to stakeholders, you understand business better and you understand how your program actually helps them achieve their business goals. And it's not just something that we all need to learn competencies and we all need to learn leadership skills.
This is another really big challenge for all HR people. I'll take that back. Most of HR people is that we talk different languages. We don't talk business language, unfortunately. We are like all in the human side, which is great. We are in the psyche, we're like in behaviors and business, like that's a gibberish for them, right? What are you talking about? They understand numbers, right? They understand dollar amount or whatever currency it is. And I think this is my advantage, really, and is that I actually graduated from the business school. So my first education is management. So I understand how the business works. I understand how each function is connected and how they work together. So I was always able to convey that to the business. And that was so usually pretty unique. So they would say, "Whoa, you're such a good psychologist," which would always make me laugh. But at the end of the day, this is what really helps to bridge that gap of between two, like being able to translate human language into the business language and bring them along with you, so then you can work together and you can achieve goals. This is another like very crucial thing for all HRs is learning that skill. And I'm even thinking that probably a management course should be something that is required as part of your professional education, part of the HR professional education for sure. So they can understand the business, so that then they can speak the business.
And I know like many HR people came to the profession from different backgrounds. And so if you don't have
Mhm.
that management education, Maria just said a very magic word, which is curiosity. Go ask questions. And that's how we learn. That's how we all learn. I have a question, Maria. What do you think about edutainment? And my take is at the beginning, I felt like, it's an interesting idea to keep people engaged so that they have fun, it's not boring. But honestly, it feels like we, in this edutainment, the second part becomes more important than the first one.
And the second part is
The edutainment, I mean, the entertainment is more important than education. I'm curious to hear your perspective on that.
I think about myself and I think about how do I learn, having some kind of a like competition with myself or having some kind of a like gamification, like winning certain things and progressing, that kind of supports me. However, in terms of the entertainment altogether, I think the education and learning works when the person is motivated to learn and get educated. And if they are motivated, well, do you really need to entertain them? I think this is really a trying to heal the broken arm with a band aid, quite honestly. It steers your focus away from what the real point is. So the question is, why are you here? And why do I have to entertain you to keep you here? When the organizational change happens, when you need to learn new things. I remember what we have been doing back in my corporate years, where everybody all of a sudden started running around with, oh, agile, big data, all that. It was like 10 years ago. And people were scratching their heads like, what the heck is that? And you understand that this is the tendency, right? This is where the world is going. You kind of have to catch up, whether you want it or not. I'm okay with the gamification, quite honestly. I think this is a good part in terms of the entertainment altogether. I'm not sure this is the right answer to the right problem, quite honestly. But what I think you need to be doing is really working with the motivation of people and really explaining what is the benefit there for them. Again, going back to the buy in, right? Even asking them, okay, so here's the status quo. This is the reality. We're not going back. We're only going forward. We have to really follow the tendencies, right? how you will benefit if you learn that. So let them motivate themselves to be involved in the educational process. And I think this is much more sustainable approach here rather than, hey, let me entertain you while you're learning.
And I love this shift in the focus. If your leadership development program is not working, if people don't want to join, it's not a question, how can I entertain them better? How can I add more fun? What's the crazy activity that they would love? But more like, okay, how do I build a system that supports this program? How do I make sure that this program really gives something that they need, and how to make sure that they know that they will get this from this program? So it's, again, comes back to systemic approach and managing stakeholders and making programs that really help them progress and grow in the organization. I love that.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Marie. It is an amazing conversation. I've learned so much. I have one final question for you, which I
Okay.
ask every guest, and that is, if you had a magic wand and could change one thing and solve one biggest problem of HR business leaders, HR leaders, what would that be?
Ooh. Can I have 3 wishes?
One. I know.
I think what would be really beneficial to all HR people and L&D people is really adopting the change agent mentality. And this is together with this systemic approach that we have been talking about, because when you see the problem on a systemic level, you also need everybody on the systemic level to be involved in order to solve it. But and a lot of times that requires the change from bottom up or from top down, because like we say in Russian, the fish rots from the head, right? So we have to start from the very top, and we have to ensure that all the necessary values and behaviors are trickling down from the very top. But how do you get there? I think that's kind of the way of the change management. But you need to advocate for that. When I say you, I mean HR people or L&D people in particular. And this is where having this change agent mindset is so important, because this is how you go and convince others that they actually need the change, even though it is going outside of the comfort zone. But the incentive should be really good.
It's a very strong point. I really want us to understand that the value we bring to the organization, and that being these kind of change agents, being able to bring all the stakeholders together to create programs that will change behavior and let people grow and let organizations grow, it's a huge opportunity, and it's so interesting, and it's kind of stepping out of our comfort zone as well. Well, thank you so much, Maria. How people can find you, how they can reach out?
LinkedIn, for sure. If you type in Maria Kolesnikoff, you will find me there. It's very easy. Or you can go to my website. It is yourwayup.coach.
And we have all the links to Maria's LinkedIn and website in the notes to this episode. And thank you so much, Maria, for your insights. Thanks for sharing your story. Thanks for talking about the systemic approach and curiosity as something that will help you learn business and help you create programs that people really need. And thank you to our listeners for staying with us till the end. If you like this episode, please give us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and stay tuned for the next episodes. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.